Hi, my name is Lynette, and I am a certified professional resume writer with the Career Center of the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Today's topic is Cover Letters 2.0. And we call it that because this is a follow-up to a previous video that we've done, Introduction to Cover Letters, where we covered the basics. Today we're going to get into some of the more advanced aspects that will help you write a fabulous cover letter. We're going to be looking at a template today. This cover letter was written by Miss Ellie Whitney. This cover letter template is from a book entitled Modernize Your Job Search Letters, which is an absolutely fabulous book for helping people write cover letters, networking letters, thank you letters. I can't recommend it highly enough. We're going to be coming back to this template throughout the presentation to take a look at examples of the things that we're talking about. To begin with, let's get into formatting. A good cover letter has 7 sections. You begin with your heading. This is going to contain your name and contact information, and you want your heading to match the heading on your resume. Then you get into the date, the address. This will be the name and address of the person that you're sending the letter to. The salutation, which is Dear Mr. or Ms. whoever. The body, which is the meat of your letter. Your closing statement, which should be something like thank you for your time or sincerely. And finally, your signature. You can see that Ms. Whitney's letter includes all of these sections. She begins with a heading, with her name and information, the date, the address of the person she's sending it to, Dear Mr. Peterson, the body of her message, and finally, Sincerely, Ellie P. Whitney. Now, when you are writing your letter, you want to make sure that you add a little bit of white space in between it. You want to make sure that you skip a line after each section of your cover letter to give a little bit of white space, and after each paragraph of the body of the letter. This will make sure that the letter doesn't look too cluttered and like a giant wall of text. At the end, you want to skip 2 to 3 lines after the closing so that you have room to handwrite in your signature. Now, all of this so far sounds very formal, and this formality is appropriate for a cover letter that you're giving in person. But if you're submitting a cover letter by email, some of this formality can be removed. When you send an email, you don't need to include a heading or a date or the address of the person you're sending it to. Instead, you're just going to type a simple email message, which is going to include Dear Mr. or Ms. whoever, the body of your letter, and your closing. Below this, you're going to sign your name, and then you want to have a signature that includes your email address, your phone number, your LinkedIn profile, so that it's very easy for them to be able to contact you right away based on just that. Finally, for an emailed cover letter, you want to attach your resume as an attachment to the email. So we talked about formatting. Now let's talk about content. When you are in the process of writing your cover letter, what are some of the guidelines you should keep in mind? First, you want to make sure that you address it to a specific person. Don't say Dear Sir or Madam. That sounds too generic. Instead, put forth the effort to do some research into the organization, check them out online. If you can't find out online, call them and ask who is the appropriate person that you should be addressing this letter to. We can see that Miss Ellie Whitney does this in her letter very well. She begins it, Dear Mr. Peterson. So, well done. Next, you want to make sure that your cover letter is customized for this specific job and company. You never want a generic one-size-fits-all cover letter that you use for every job. No. You're going to think carefully about what this job wants, what they're looking for, and those are going to be the things that you specify in your cover letter. We can see that Miss Whitney does this well in her cover letter. She has a section in her cover letter that highlights some of the best skills and accomplishments that she has done throughout her career. And she focuses on the aspects that are most relevant to the kind of position that she's applying for. She's applying for a director of finance position. So she focuses on accomplishments such as saving money in operational costs and integrating new systems without impacting the clients. These are achievements that any hiring manager for this position is going to be interested in. You want to make sure that you stuff your cover letter full of keywords from the job posting. This is kind of an extension of the previous point about customizing the letter. You want to read the job posting, figure out exactly what they're looking for, what the most important words in that job posting are, and make sure that those words are in your cover letter so it's easy for them to see that your skills are a match for this opening. You want to make sure that you avoid walls of text. Walls of text are a bad idea in the job search because nobody wants to read that. Keep your cover letter short. If you're having trouble fitting it onto one page, that's a good sign that you need to cut something. If you have a paragraph that's getting large, you can break it down by having bullet points for some of your key points. We can see that Miss Whitney does this well in her letter. Rather than having one giant paragraph, she includes a few bullet points, and this draws the eye naturally to those achievements. And you want to make sure that the heading on your cover letter matches the heading on your resume for a printed letter. As we discussed already, an emailed letter is a little bit less formal. Now let's look at letters for recruiters. So this isn't a traditional cover letter that you write towards a company that's looking to hire someone to work at that company. This would be a cover letter you'd write to a recruiter or a recruiting agency saying, I know that you hire people like me who have my skills all the time, so here we go, let's make something happen. The number one problem that we see people face when they write cover letters to recruiters is that they're too vague with what they want. They're just asking for a job. And if you just ask for any job, you're not going to get any job because that's too vague for them to properly help you. When you write this kind of letter, you want to make sure that you're very clear about what you want and what you have to offer. Spell out your skills, what industry you're in, and the kind of position that you're looking for. The more detail you give them, the more they can help you find the right position. On that note, there is certain information that you would include in a recruiter letter that is normally never part of a cover letter. But in this case, it's a good idea to include because the recruiter needs to know these things up front. Things like your salary requirements, when you're available, and what regions of the country you can work in. Plus special information. Do you need a visa sponsorship to work? Do you have a disability that's going to make it so that you can only work in certain environments? Are there certain hours that you will never be able to work? These are the kinds of things a recruiter needs to know right away so that they can make sure that they're not wasting their time or yours by trying to match you up with a job that's not a good fit. Let's take a look at an example recruiter letter. This recruiter letter from Mr. Montero is from the same book we mentioned earlier, Modernize Your Job Search Letters. We can see that this letter is less formal, less heavily formatted than the previous letter we looked at. That's because this is an email. We can also see that Mr. Montero does a great job of specifying exactly what kind of job he's looking for. At the very beginning, his subject line for this email is Senior Sales Professional, Pharmaceutical and Medical. Right away, he lets them know what field he's in and what kind of position he's looking for. He also does all of the good cover letter things one should do, including highlights of his best achievements. But at the bottom, he includes information that I would not normally recommend putting in a cover letter. He talks about how much money he needs to make, and he says that he has a special needs child who requires certain educational resources. This is information you don't normally volunteer in a cover letter. But the recruiter needs to know, so he needs to say this up front. Now, let's take a look at the wow factor, the things that you can do to bring your cover letter from good to great. You want to make sure that your letter establishes your personal brand. What is that? Your personal brand is, in a nutshell, who you are as a professional, what you have to offer, what your skill set is. Our cover letters do a fabulous job of this. If we take a look at Miss Whitney's letter, the heading at the very top of the resume is a strong establishment of her personal brand. She begins by saying she is a director of finance / corporate controller, and that her areas of specialty include healthcare tax accounting, strategic financial planning, HR administration, and business management. These keywords, before anyone has even read the letter, they already have a good idea of what she can do and what her areas of specialty are. Excellent establishment of personal brand. You want to make sure that your letter addresses your reader's needs and interests. Don't get so hung up on talking about you that you forget to think about them, their perspective, and what they're looking for. You want to make sure that your letter is going to speak to their needs. Mr. Montero's letter does an excellent job of this. He begins by talking about some of his specific achievements and accomplishments in the field of pharmaceutical sales. A 200% jump in business, a turnaround of a major system in 3 months. These are excellent, relevant accomplishments. He's going to catch their eye. He then goes a step further by highlighting some of his best personal qualities. He's efficient and organized, helpful, and a natural at building rapport. These are things any employer is going to want to see. So these sorts of things really tailor his letter to the kind of job he's applying for. You want to make sure your letter includes information about why you want the job. Don't just make it about what you have to offer. Also talk about why you're interested in this company. Flatter them. Make them feel special. If you want, you can also talk about your passion for this industry, why you enjoy doing this kind of work. Mr. Montero's letter does an excellent job of this. He talks about his passion for healthcare. He says that he grew up in a household full of nurses and he sees the difference that they made in the world. He's applying for a job in medical sales, so this is relevant and it speaks to his passion for the industry. You want to end your letter with a call to action. Let them know what the next steps in the process are, what you expect them to do now. This is going to make sure that your letter has some forward momentum to it. Ms. Whitney ends her letter by saying, "Feel free to contact me at your earliest convenience to further discuss how I can contribute. Contact me, call me, talk to me." This is a call to action. Very well done. You want to make sure your letter maintains an appropriate tone that mirrors the company culture. Normally, the tone that you want to go for a cover letter is fairly formal. However, we have seen a couple of extreme cases where that's a bad idea. We had a client who came into the Career Center and got our help creating a cover letter, and it was formal, as we normally tend to write these things. And the client went to her friend who worked for the company, and the friend told her, "That letter sounds way too stuffy and out of touch. They're not going to be interested. You need to rewrite this." Whoa, what was going on? Well, the company that she was applying with was a startup tech company in a social media field. It was very young, very new. Everyone who worked there was under the age of 30. Their website emphasized fun and play and casualness, and we missed that. We were not aware that that was the tone of the company. So when she came back, we helped her rewrite a new cover letter that was much more casual sounding, more like a friendly chat, and that cover letter got her an interview. This is an extreme case, but keep in mind, you want to make sure that your tone is appropriate for the kind of company that you're applying for, which makes it important to do some research on the company first and find out about them. Finally, If you have been referred to this job, if you have a contact who works for the company already, if you have a mutual friend who said, hey, I think this position would be a really good fit for you, that is an incredibly valuable thing for you to have, that foot in the door, that connection. So you want to make sure that you mention that in the very first sentence. For example, our client that we just discussed, who had a friend who worked for the company, she mentioned that at the very beginning of her cover letter. My friend so-and-so works there already, and she talks all the time about what a fun environment it is, and she told me she thought I'd be a natural fit for it. Well, that's more likely to get a hiring manager's attention. So, this concludes our seminar for today. If you liked this video, please hit like, and if you'd like to see more content from us, please click subscribe. And if you have any questions about any of the topics we covered today, don't hesitate to call us at the Career Center or come by the main library on Goodwood for an in-person visit. Thank you.